Welcome to Around the Blockchain. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
All right, Ashish, welcome to Around the Blockchain. If you can just introduce yourself to the viewers for me.
Thanks a lot, Brian, for inviting me on your podcast on this channel. And really, it's a pleasure speaking to you and through you to the global blockchain community as well. So I'm Ashish Anand, co-founder of Whrrl, India's largest blockchain platform. And Whrrl is actually solving a very interesting use case for the farmers in India and looking to take it to global stage as well, wherein using blockchain for good, we allow farmers to use our blockchain protocol to borrow money from different banks against a simple deposit of their harvested crop. So in emerging markets like India and many other emerging markets of the world as well, harvest time is supposed to be the money making time for the farmers, right? Anywhere we would assume that, but unfortunately that's not really the case most of the time. At the time of harvest, because the supply for the entire year comes in the market, what happens that prices of agricultural commodities, the crop, tend to fall down, and the farmers, even though they have a bumper harvest, may not be actually able to realize best of the prices for their commodities. At that time, the prices, and typically the farmers sell at the local markets, nearby markets, where there is not so much of demand. The demand is localized, it is spread throughout the year. But the harvest is getting sold at one point of time in the year. So the prices have this seasonal tendency, agri commodities, to fall down. And when that happens, unfortunately, farmers don't get the best of the prices. So they may not be able to benefit from the best, despite the bumper harvest, they may not be able to benefit from it. So that is where we bring an innovative warehouse receipt finance solution and bring blockchain on the same time so that the farmers are in a position to get better rates for their crop. And at the same time, they are in a position to get the liquidity through banking channels.
And so that's where Whrrl comes in. What were you doing before working for Whrrl, Ashish?
So I have around 17 years of experience in financial domain. So I was largely working in debt syndication till 2016. That is when I jumped onto the blockchain bandwagon. So I discovered blockchain and Bitcoin way back in 2011, but it was a journey on the from a financial guy's side who had it who took some time to understand that money can come in the form of a code instead of in the form of a paper guaranteed by government. So while my introduction to blockchain, Bitcoin happened long back in 2011, I was on the other side of the spectrum, other side of the table. That is it possible for a software code to become a currency? Slowly, my eyes opened up, and in 2016-17, I came to blockchain in a larger way. We established, along with a few co-founders across the globe, I established a blockchain consulting organization called Blockchain Advisory Council, where we had more than 100 domain and information technology experts to solve the problems of enterprises looking to go into blockchain space.
So Ashish, you first got exposed to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin back in 2011, but then you sort of were a little bit skeptical back then, and you didn't obviously, take the leap of faith and dive into the industry until 2016. So what was the, major sort of turning point for you, or what did you kind of see in 2016 as opposed to 2011 that made you sort of get into the industry?
Right. So in 2011, when I was involved into financial domain, I was deep into that. When I first got introduced to Bitcoin, my thought process, see, as a traditional finance guy, how we look at money, that or it is the notion of money from the from the time of childhood, that it is something issued by central banks, it is backed by governments, power, etc., etc. And to that guy, what Bitcoin was backed with was a software code, right? So from that perspective, it looked very ambitious to say that this will become money and this will be used by people around the world and all. So that was a spectacle view I had that it's not going to work at all. And we had certain examples of e-money and trials around that it will be one of the same thing. But over a period of time, I realized that, and which sort of realization should have come long back. After all, I studied economics also during my graduation days. That currency at the basic form is what? It's something we use for payment of goods or services. You have other attributes, but this is the core function of currency, right? The core function of money. And that is when around 2015-16, if you look that people had started within a small network though, who were crypto natives or crypto early adopters, they had started using Bitcoin or Ethereum even for payment of certain goods and services. And then my eyes opened that if it is being used even in a small group of people, then it is money, right? And that's when I started to think in a better way about how Bitcoin works. Also got introduced to blockchain, its application in financial industry, etc., etc. And that is when I switched to blockchain.
Do you still think of Bitcoin as a currency? There's sort of a bit of a debate about what exactly its function is now. It's been compared to gold, more of like a store of value, or even a hedge against inflation. But where do you personally sort of see Bitcoin fitting in within that sort of ecosystem?
So, so certainly, then actually speaking, if we think of Bitcoin as digital gold, which has been the very established narrative for last, I would say, 2 to 3 years. So earlier, when everybody was talking about Bitcoin as money, slowly the accepted narrative as of since 2019 to 2021 is it's a digital gold, a hedge against inflation because it is not correlated with other asset classes, etc. Uh, and supply is fixed from that perspective. Also, the design is of a mining design, which has been Bitcoin's design from the very beginning. So I believe that Satoshi somewhere had this in mind that we are actually trying to create a digital gold sort of application. So certainly that is there, but then it becomes an asset class. It will be difficult to say that it's a currency or it's money. It becomes an asset class, and certainly there are incentives to use Bitcoin as currency. So I mean, nobody wants to become the $10,000 visa guy, right? We don't want to be at that stage where we would say that, oh, I should have stored that instead of spending that. So certainly that thought process, I mean, that mindset has changed around the market. But in my opinion, that asset class remains. However, if we have to become a money, maybe not be today, but someday, like El Salvador has done, uh, that sort of acceptance among the people that you are using Bitcoin for exchange of value has to come. It cannot remain just like a digital gold if it has to become a money. It can remain as a digital gold and will remain a very good asset class in that sense. But for us to have that electronic peer-to-peer uh, exchange of value, it has to be accepted that some point of time the circulation should start. And that is when the real value will also be realized. Because at the end of the day, a currency has to support an economy. It can remain an asset class, and it can become a money or a currency. Those are two different value propositions. Only time will tell that where do we go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up an interesting point about El Salvador there, obviously recently adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. What do you sort of think about that? Do you foresee that happening in other countries, possibly even India? Where do you sort of see, the world going with potentially adopting Bitcoin as legal tender?
Certainly not in India in near future. So India has been a protected economy for quite long. Our Even today, Indian Indian central bank, they don't permit full convertibility on capital transactions. So full convertibility is allowed on current account transactions, means transfer of money for value of services and goods. But full convertibility on capital account transactions like equity, debt, etc., is still very much restricted. So I don't see Indian central bank to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender at all in near future. I mean, things will always evolve and they change. But our central banks have been traditionally very much conservative in that fashion, and they have been happy with that, because if you see 2008 crisis, the financial crisis did not touch India much, and 1997 Asian currency crisis, it did not touch India much, because of the and that is where the central bank of India believes that their policies have paid rewards. So I don't see them going there. But there are many countries in the world where dollar has been traditionally used as a either accepted fiat currency or as a quasi fiat currency. Uh, or in the at the time of Soviet bloc, the Soviet ruble used to play that role in the Curtain countries. So wherever traditionally you have seen some other currency being used as a proxy for it, or as a legal tender, in those markets certainly there is a huge, I mean there is a high region that they would switch to Bitcoin. Their incentives are quite high if they believe that US economic policies affect their economy without having the similar sort of underlying market conditions. They would certainly like to switch to a currency which has a defined monetary policy instead of something like dollar. So there, in say for example, a country somewhere in Latin America or Africa, having a different inflation rate than having an inflation rate of the US, right? And but they are subjected to, if they have adopted dollar as a currency, they are subjected to the same monetary policy which Fed Reserve is using. So why they will not switch over to Bitcoin for sure? But a large country like India, China, or G20 countries, I don't see them coming to that bandwagon so easily. They would rather try to protect their turf. They would like to protect their turf by banning cryptocurrencies or trying to ban, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Indian government has been quite critical of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Is that correct?
More than Indian government, it's the, as I mentioned, the Central Bank of India. So Indian government may adopt crypto as an asset class or something, but Central Bank of India, which we call Reserve Bank of India, uh, for them to accept cryptocurrencies as a mode of payment, is it's a long task.
Yeah, absolutely. I could imagine. It's obviously it's a massive country. So, look, changing pace. I want you to talk to me a little bit about Whrrl. I've spoken to a couple of similar projects here in Australia. So, Agri Digital I had on quite recently, and I've spoken to another gentleman named Phil Talbot as well, also doing something kind of similar. They're more along the lines of the supply chain sort of thing. So, what are you doing at Whrrl? Talk to me about that.
Sure. So, as you rightly pointed out, Whrrl is a supply chain financing platform, but it caters to, unlike most of the supply chain platform, which cater to receivable financing, we cater to asset-backed loans. And the asset here is uh, what is a farmer's or a trader's or an exporter's deposit kept in a warehouse. And this deposit is a commodity, which is typically in India, it's agriculture commodity. And we call it warehouse receipt finance. Or in the other markets, it is called commodity finance. The concept is very much simple, and it's one of the oldest lending products of the world, originated sometime around 9,000 years back in Mesopotamia. So we have taken the oldest lending product of the mankind and brought the newest technology, the cutting edge blockchain technology, and married them together. So the concept is very simple. So I would just give an analogy. Today, if you are a Bitcoin hodler and you don't want to sell that, but you need liquidity, what do? You deposit your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, on a lending protocol, and get 50% or 70% of the market value as a loan. So it serves two purposes. You are waiting for the price to rise. You don't want to sell your cryptocurrency holdings. You lock that with the DeFi protocol. And at the same time, your liquidity issue, because you need cash for your living expenses, etc. So it comes in the form of a loan. Provided the idea is that the price rise will be much higher than the rate of interest will be paid, right? The same concept is applied in warehouse receipt finance. So a farmer had just harvested his crop and is not happy with the price because he knows that right now it's the harvest season, my prices are much lower than what is the average price. So say, for example, average price of wheat, say in India, is supposedly at 30 rupees, which will be something like, you can say around 40 cents per kilogram. But after the harvest, the price will be something like 30 cents per kilogram. So that's around a 30% gap, or maybe 30 to 32 or something like that. So that's around 20 to 30% gap from the average price. So why a farmer would like to sell that? So what the farmers will do, they will deposit that in a warehouse, but they also run into the same problem, right? If they deposit, they don't have liquidity. They need working capital for the next crop. They also need money for household expenses. They also have to pay the fee for their kids. They also have to marry off their daughters and all those things. They also have to spend money on festivals and all. And everywhere across the world, if you will see that festivals and other things are linked to the harvest season. So then the farmers also require money for all these expenses. Similarly, so what they do, that they deposit it in the crop in a warehouse and take a loan against that from Whrrl platform.
What blockchain does Whrrl operate on top of?
So Whrrl has built its custom blockchain, but it was built on Quorum blockchain's platform.
Yeah, interesting. How does it work? So on top of that particular blockchain, so I've been familiar with a couple of these, lending protocols and obviously DeFi. But how does it work on top of? Sorry, what was the blockchain that you said that it works on top of?
It's Quorum blockchain.
Okay.
Quorum is a JP Morgan product. It was launched by JP Morgan as a private. You can say it's a private version of Ethereum with certain better consensus protocol like Raft, BIFT, etc. introduced into that.
And hopefully cheaper gas fees than Ethereum.
Because it's not a public blockchain, it doesn't affect us. The gas fee is not there.
Perfect.
We have created a private blockchain network wherein the farmers, the warehouses where they deposit their commodities, the banks, they all are on a single private blockchain network. And we facilitate lending there. So what happens that when the farmers come to the warehouse and deposit their commodities, we create a non-fungible token. And so we have been doing NFT for last 2 years, since 2019. And we also lend against NFT. So before the NFTs become a craze, we had been doing that. So we generate a non-fungible token, which is a proof that this farmer has, say, deposited 100 quintals of wheat in our warehouses. Warehouse is the custodian in this particular case, custodian of the assets. And then there is a certification agency which certifies that actually this farmer's deposited in the warehouse. So all those certifications are also part of the NFT. Even they certify what is the quality of this particular produce, what is the price, today's market price, etc. So we have oracles which feed the price to the NFT. And this NFT is shared with the banks right now on our protocol in the real time. And then banks lend against that. So the NFT is logged in the smart contracts. As soon as the banks, so for example, this 100 quintal, says, for example, the price is somewhere, say, around 5,000 US dollars. So against that, the banks will transfer around 3,500 US dollars to the bank account of the farmers. So here we use blockchain, marry that with the fintech solutions existing in India, and use that to transfer real-time loans to the farmers against a simple security of their harvest. And not only farmers, now we are also expanding this to corporates. So we are expanding this to MSME traders. They can also do the same thing. We are also expanding this to mills, the processing mills like rice mill or wheat mill, etc., flour mill. So we are also now extending this platform to all those such participants. Also, we are now looking to take it to other markets. So we recently tied up with Whrrl Loans, which is based in Australia itself, for expanding our Whrrl's platform to Australian markets. We are also looking to just right now we are part of one of the UNDP's programs, wherein UNDP is looking to take the solutions to other countries in Asia and Africa as well.
Yeah, awesome. In the Australian market, have you had much traction yet, or you haven't sort of released the product over here yet?
This month. In the Australian market, we just started this month with our partners Whrrl Loans.
Yeah, beautiful. Sorry, how's it been, like that process of taking a successful product in your country and then obviously to an international market? How's that process been for you guys?
This process has just started, so we will see that how it pans out. But India itself is a diverse country and a big country. So we have some sort of experience here. So in India, different states will have different sort of demographics, will have different sort of income level, etc. So right now, we have experiences of taking it to different people and different sort of customer profile. So we see that it will be, so we are hopeful that it will be working well in international markets. Not only that, we are also launching our DeFi protocol for the same product. So we are now looking to, so if you look at DeFi so far, it is more focused on crypto market, crypto assets, lending, especially talking about lending protocols. So they are native to crypto assets. But what we are now trying to do, that we are trying to bring these sort of real world assets to DeFi protocols, where people across the globe will be able to lend to farmers in Asia, farmers in Africa, farmers in Australia, or anywhere. And not only farmers, they will be able to lend to corporates as well. And not unsecured loans. These will be loans which will be backed by assets. So right now, the agri-commodities are first product. And I would say one thing as well here to add, that actually speaking, this lending is in sync with the ethos of Bitcoin per se, because agriculture produces are actually hedged against inflation. If you have invested in agri commodities, actually speaking, you have hedged yourself against any sort of inflation. So right now, agriculture produce, and then we are looking at other commodities as well. So that is where in Australian market we are looking at other commodities like metals, etc. Wherein the metals are actually in the course of supply chain itself. Most of the commodities during the course of supply chain when they are being transported, they typically are stored in warehouses. They are stored by people who own them. They are stored at the ports, etc. So we are looking to get those metals and lend against them as well. So that is where we are looking to launch our global DeFi platform. We are also now taking it to Latin America, with Colombia is the first country where we have started working on this.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds like you guys have got a lot of big moves and stuff ahead, which is obviously quite exciting. Obviously, peer-to-peer lending sounds quite interesting to me. How does that all sort of work? You said it's like these loans are actually collateralized. How does that sort of specifically work?
So for example, right now what we do that we tie up with the banks or other lenders, and those banks or other lenders lend to farmers, say for example. What we can do that through a DeFi protocol. It may not be exactly a P2P lending. It would be largely like a pool-based lending. So the pool of assets are created, and against that, pools of lenders are lending to them. So directly, a person like, say for example, Ryan wants to lend to farmers in India. So Ryan can put his money into a pool, and that pool will be lending to the farmers in India, instead of Ryan being connected to directly to one single farmer. That way, what happens, that risk is reduced, because now instead of lending to one person, actually speaking, as a lender, You are lending to a pool of thousands and hundreds of thousands of farmers or hundreds or the MSME traders, or for example, mills and exporters. So that way the risk is diversified. So we will be using that as a at the protocol level.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. Thanks for unpacking that. That sounds very interesting. Look, obviously, Whrrl has been very successful in India itself. Have you guys got any, competitors within that market? And then I guess what does Whrrl do better than those?
So we have competitors. As I told that this is a 9,000-year-old product, right? So there are competitors who have been doing it traditionally, who do it on paper based, and that is where they suffer. So why we introduced blockchain into this space is because of the banking frauds. So commodity finance across the globe is one of the most problematic area for the banks. Last year, 2020, banks lost more than $13 billion in commodity finance across the globe. So people have been doing it based on manual systems. They have been doing it. Some of them have tried to bring electronic systems around this, but there are many restrictions around those how to play that. What we have done, there you need third parties to create electronic records and all. What we do, we connect the warehouses and banks together on a blockchain platform without any third party intermediary. And then we connect the farmers to it using our mobile app. So we have created a holistic solution in India, which is not yet, first of all, blockchain application in warehouse receipt finance is not yet done so anywhere else. So that is our first mover advantage. And the second part is that we have also brought farmers to the digital lending instead of leaving them on the manual side, which doesn't complete the cycle. So now on our platform, entire warehousing, lending, and also we are starting trading on that. So these NFTs will be traded on our platform.
That's awesome. It's glad to hear, or refreshing to hear, I should say, NFTs having a real world use case like this. Do you foresee the NFT technology, obviously pushing past its, I guess its current stage of it being very popular as, artwork and stuff like that? Do you sort of foresee the NFT technology, going into other areas, obviously like what you've just sort of spoken about?
So certainly, that is the future of NFT. So you need a driver, right? You need a catalyst point, which was the arts NFT, to make NFTs this popular. Because NFTs had been there since CryptoKitties days. They became this popular because someone thought that why not to put arts into that, and it became very popular. But when they became popular, we also saw the downside of that the real art may or may not exist at all, or the electronic art may have so many copies that they lose the value of the art itself. So certainly it was the catalyst which brought NFT to the discussion points from across the globe. Everywhere we had people talking about NFT. Even the Silicon Valley was talking about that. The Hollywood was talking about that. The baseball teams have been talking about that. So we have people across the globe talking about that. But then we realized a number of things. For example, what if I own the NFT, but art is somewhere else? What if it is sold separately and things like that? So certainly there are a lot of improvements which are required in the way NFTs have been created today. But more than that, if you look at anywhere, so we have been talking about tokenization in the blockchain space for many years now. But what all those tokenization is about, it is about NFTs, right? So they are not fungible tokens. My house is not going to be the same like my neighbor's house. Even if it is the same area, same from the outside, they may look the same, but there are certain interiors which change, right? How the house has been constructed inside. So all these applications which we have been talking about, tokenization of equity, tokenization of bonds, tokenization of real assets, all those will happen all through the NFTs only. And that is where you will see the real boom in NFT coming. We will see receivables finance coming through the NFTs and others. So it's going the biggest application of blockchain in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, what do you see are the other major benefits of blockchain technology? What are the sort of industries are we going to see blockchain sort of go into? And then, what other impacts do you think blockchain technology is going to have on the world?
So see, I mean, we know that where it is going to impact. So banking is the first one, which will be. We saw that actually speaking, decentralized finance changed the way we have been doing banking for so many centuries, right? So BFSI is going to be changed with blockchain. There is no doubt in anybody's mind about that. And secondly, the logistics and the supply chain is where we have already seen like Walmart and the Merck and the IBM of the world doing a lot of work to food trust and other things. Uh, Third part I see that which are, I mean, these are all known examples, right? Counterfeit goods. So luxury goods will be the third one. But what right now is happening in the blockchain space that people are just digitizing what was existing process. We will see new models, new business models emerging, which will change the way we have been looking at things. And like DeFi come as a new business model for lending, new business model for trading. So those certainly those things we will be going to see new business models emerging as well, even in the enterprise world. Say, for example, today you require clearing houses, right, for doing lot of transactions across the globe. Whether you are talking about equity investments or you're talking about transfer of goods from one place to other, you require clearing agents and all. Blockchain is going to remove so many those intermediaries. It is going to connect the people and the enterprises or enterprise to enterprise directly. If you look at 10 to 15 years back in the management theory, we always talked about removing the silos from the enterprises. Silos have been removed from many enterprises, but in the industries, silos have still been. Future is going to remove that in enterprise to enterprise silo. Today, one enterprise works in its own silo, even if it has number of transactions in this ecosystem, whether it's vendors, with its customers, with its employees and others. What we are going to see that all those interactions will happen on a single protocol and will not have these silos. We will have shared information, we will have shared infrastructure and everything coming through thanks to blockchain. All the early applications of blockchain, and we would see this slowly emerging.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've been going for about 35 minutes, Ashish. Do you have any closing thoughts for the viewers?
So, so we see that, if we talk about the crypto world and if we talk about the real world, we still see a lot of gap, a lot of chasm is there, which has to be bridged if we have to change the crypto world from a speculative business to a real world business. And that is when the mass adoption will happen. Otherwise, it will remain a speculative product for crypto native people. So we need to see that shift. And that is where we see that the lot of gap is there. Some of the Goldfinch, Centrifuge, etc., have been trying to bridge that gap as well. We see that bridge should close earlier than it is taking a lot of time. And we think that Whrrl will be able to contribute to bridge that gap as well in certain markets and in certain asset classes for sure.
Awesome. Look, thank you so much for jumping on. I'll be obviously staying in touch. I'd be interested to see how Whrrl does, obviously here in Australia. But thank you so much for your time, Ashish. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. It was a pleasure speaking to you and looking forward to keep this interaction going.
Thank you.